everyone. I am your host, Ethan, and welcome to the first episode of Focus In. This has been a passion project I've been wanting to do for a while now. I just never had the time, and I never had the. It really was just the fact I never had the time to really, sit down and record podcasts and make episodes and all that stuff. I'm balancing school. I'm going to my senior year and all, so I just didn't have that time. So I want to try it now and see what I can do. So to introduce myself, I am a photographer and I am passionate about technology. The goal of this podcast is to discuss those things: my journey as a photographer, the latest innovations in technology, or just my thoughts on both worlds. It's like I said, it's something I'm really passionate about, and in terms of photography, I want to turn that into a career. Yeah, I'm already starting to turn that into a career, but I want to turn it into more of a career. Like I said, it's something I'm really passionate about, and it really is something. So, but how did I get into photography? How did I even get into that world or stumble upon that? It was about 4 years ago. It was in 2019, and here I am thinking it was 2 years ago. But, anyways, I was on Instagram one day scrolling, and I saw my cousin. He's a photographer as well, older than me, and he's posting pictures. I'm like, these look really good. So then he's like, I asked him like, hey, you think I could be a photographer? And he's like, yeah, man, just got to do it. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So my first camera was a Nikon Coolpix, and that was a really small camera. It was my parents' camera at the time. It was like, I think it came out in 2009, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, so that was my first camera, and I'm like, okay, I started taking pictures everywhere. And one of the things I wanted to do was like floral photography, so like flowers and all that type of stuff. So my mom has, my stepmom has flowers in the back. So I started taking pictures of those, and I was like, I like how vibrant these are. It's something I want to take pictures of and make money off of. Even though the goal wasn't like per se, I just want to make money, but I was like, hey, this is something I'm passionate about. Yeah, money can come whenever, but it's something I want to do. Even if I'm not making money off of it, it's something I want to do, right? So, and then knowing me, after I asked my cousin that question, I become obsessed. I start studying it, and then I become good at it, or become decent at it, So that's exactly what happened. I started watching every YouTube video known to man about cameras. I was like, okay, ISO, aperture, shutter speed, all that good stuff. I started watching every video known to mankind about that, and it really was good. It was really good. So I started doing that, and then here I am today. I'm a photographer, and I started doing gigs. Right, I started doing gigs after a little bit, after I upgraded to my DSLR. And I started doing gigs after I upgraded to my DSLR, and it was really cool. Infamously, I charged $50 for my first gig for the whole thing, and my best friend will not let me live it down, and I don't blame her. But I learned from that, and I kept, I got better at it. I got better at the pricing. Obviously, I got better at doing it. My second gig was at I did something for my city. It was an event or inauguration for this club at my school, hosted by one of the commissioners in my county, and it was for like hibiscus girls, and I did it, and I charged her $200, and it was pretty good. Honestly, it was really good. So then after that, I was like, okay, this is going well. And then my third gig I got was with my minister at my church. His mother had a birthday party at the church, and I took pictures for that, and I got paid $280 for that. I know it sounds like, oh yeah, the money's coming in, but like I said, it really is just a passion for me. It really is just the fact that I'm helping people capture these moments and these memories. It's really good it's a feel good feeling for me. It's like, I'm letting these people capture these moments so you can go back and years later you're looking at it and you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is what I did. I want people to go back and just do that and look at the pictures, because that's what I do, And just to kind of touch back on like the origins of becoming a photographer, my grandfather was actually a photographer as well. I never got to meet him. He passed away before I was born, but he was a photographer too, and he has a whole album back home. And I look at it, I'm just like, you know what? You wouldn't be able to remember these things without photographers. Some people just see it as, oh, you click a button and that's it. No, it's way more to that. Sometimes it's an emotional thing, and sometimes it's a technical thing, and sometimes it's kind of a mix of both. And I like that. There's a kind of a human element to being a photographer, because you're helping these people capture the moment. That's usually what I say. And I remember with my first camera, actually, it was the Nikon Coolpix. I would actually just walk around my community and start taking pictures, which I guess to an extent is kind of illegal, because you're not really supposed to trespass. I mean, I didn't trespass. I'm not saying I trespassed, but I'd like walk by people's houses and like, oh, you have flowers? I'm taking pictures of that, and that's what I did. And then I eventually got better and continued to go and continue to grow. I started posting on Instagram, and we gained a lot of traction. So yeah, and then after that, I was like, you know what, this is something I can get behind. So after that, yeah, right now I have my Nikon D5600 with my two lenses. One is 18 to 55 millimeters, and I also have a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. So yeah, and then after that, yeah, I keep going. I did pictures for my school, the yearbook. I kept going, and I kept doing my career. I kept doing me, and that's what I enjoy the most. You just got to keep doing you, and photography really is just an art, and you can and can't compare yourself to others. When it comes down to photography, because what may look good to you may look good to the other person, vice versa. So photography is really kind of subjective. I mean, there's objective rules, but there's also very subjective, at least in my opinion. So technology, how did I get into that? In middle school, I got into technology in middle school. When I say technology, I mean like everything, like computers, phones, watches, anything. I started watching these YouTubers, started watching like Austin Evans, I started watching Marquez Brownlee, and they really taught me a lot about the tech world and how vast it is. And I learned the ins and out, the lingo, I learned all that type of stuff. And then I think either before or after that, I was interested in computers, and I was like, hey, computers are really cool. They're interesting and they're complex. So that's what I did. I got into computers, and it was interesting and complex, like I predicted. So I got into that. I learned the lingo for that, and yeah, my career, I aspire to be a game developer, and I know more of the hardware side than software side of computers. Like I know software, but I know more about hardware. I guess it's a little bit easier to know hardware, but just learning how computers talk to each other, the ones and zeros and all that stuff, all that jazz, it was really good. So then I was like, okay, this is it. This is my career right here. This is something I want to do. I figured out I was like 13 years old, and then, yeah. So then I started to learn more about technology, and I got so knowledgeable about it that it just ended up being in my casual conversation with people. Like some new piece of tech would come out and be like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Or like I send it out to random people. But some of my friends will just be like, hey, XYZ product came out and I want to know your thoughts on it. Or they're like, hey, I want to accomplish this task. What piece of technology can I use to accomplish XYZ task? And I'm like, okay. I like lay out the facts and like, okay, can you take this? Because when it comes down to technology, in my opinion, it really just is like the pros and cons. Like for example, the age-old debate: Apple versus Android. I was gonna say Apple versus iPhone, but Apple versus Android. It doesn't really matter what you get, but it just depends on what you're going to use it for. Like if you just want simplicity and you want it to be easy, go for iPhone. But if you want like more technical stuff, like you want to like edit your, get like widgets and launchers and all that type of jazz, you can just get Android for that. So it really does depend on what you want. And these are the things I want to discuss when it comes to this podcast. I have some ideas in mind already for what I want to discuss. And the goal is to do it bi-weekly, every 2 Saturdays. I'm going to try. So like twice a month. I'm going to try and just, I'm going to try and get an episode out, because I also have to balance school. And, I'm going to my final year. So I don't really have time like that to sit back and just relax and just chill and all that type of stuff as much as I want to. But yeah, these are things I want to discuss when it comes down to the technology world, just like how's technology innovating, AI and photography and how that affects photography and all that stuff. I want to get into that and talk about it. And eventually, hopefully, I can have some friends here on the podcast. We can discuss those things. I have some people in mind I want to get on here. And, but everything comes in due time. But yeah, this is definitely something, like I said, this whole podcast idea is a passion project, and it's something I'd be willing to do consistently. So, I'm really glad I was able to, get this done and, get all this going. So, I'm really happy I'm able to even start this podcast. It's honestly really a blessing in disguise, or just a blessing outright, to get this going. So, I want to thank you all for listening. For all my future viewers or listeners, I want to thank you just for listening and tuning in. It means a lot to me to talk about something I'm passionate about and people want to listen. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm going to be working on the next episode and soon. I have to get some few things out the way, but like I said, I really do appreciate it. This is a passion project I want to do. Hopefully when I move to college, I can, start doing like videos, like video podcasts and whatnot, and like upload to YouTube. But I just really want to get this up off the ground and see where I can go with this. If I can get it monetized, hey, that's great. Get some money in my pocket change, if you want to call it that. But definitely, I definitely want to just be passionate and talk about things I'm passionate about. And a lot of my friends have been saying, hey, you should start a podcast, and I was like, hey, I don't have the time, I don't have the space. But I believe when you're passionate about something, you're willing to do anything for it. You're willing to make time for it. And I think this is one of those things. So this is the end of my introduction, and in the first episode of Focus In. I guess I should explain the name before I end this episode. Yeah, so I got the idea because I was like, okay, you want to focus in to understand technology because it's complex, and also cameras have lenses and you have to focus them. So I was like, oh, okay, that's a good name. Because like I actually have like a lot of like, I brainstormed some names, and I was like, this doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right. Does this sound right? This doesn't sound right. So some of the names I had for this podcast were like Aperture Brains or Shutter Brain, Aperture Freak, Shutter Freak, or Primed and Ready. But I was like, I want to talk about technology too. And like when you think about it, like I said, the idea is like focus in. Okay, you have people focusing in to listen to technology, and you also have photographers who want to like focus their camera. I like, that's the idea behind it. I don't know if it makes any sense, but I thought it was a cool name. But thank you for listening to the first episode of this podcast. Though, like I said, the hope is to do it every other Saturday. I said every 2 Saturdays, my bad. I meant to say every other Saturday. And yeah, so thank you for listening. You have a great day. Stay strong. Keep going.